The Patriots are very close to trading for and extending Brandon Aiyuk. We give you the latest updates on this developing story. Plus, Drake Maye has one of his best training camp practices until he didn't. All of that and more here on Patscast.
Patscast in the air, voices loud. Drake Maye shouts to the crowd, feel the sound.
Welcome to Patscast. I'm Brad Whitaker. Good to be with you. The Patriots wrapped up their last padded training camp practice today before their preseason opener on Thursday. They'll be going through a walkthrough on Wednesday before they play the Panthers in a couple of days. But first, I want to get to the story that's on everyone's mind, and that is about the New England Patriots potentially trading for San Francisco 49ers star wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk. And this has been a developing story over the last 36 to 48 hours, especially over the last 12 to 24 hours. And it changes by the minute. So hopefully I'm going to keep this podcast somewhat short so we can get this video up there and update you if there's any developing situations coming after. But as of right now, Patriots are still very much in the running. In fact, according to NBC Sports Bay Area, they have reportedly offered Aiyuk the most money out of all the teams that are bidding for his services. Now, I need an after-tax guy to weigh in here because, you know, they're bidding right now with the Cleveland Browns, and apparently the Pittsburgh Steelers are back in discussions. But Patriots have the cap space to work with. But let me just back it up a little bit and tell you what's happened. So there were four teams, essentially, that were in the mix a day ago. The Washington Commanders, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Cleveland Browns, and the New England Patriots. The Commanders quickly talked to the 49ers, really weren't able to make much progress on a potential deal. They dropped out of the bidding pretty quickly. And then we heard last night, same deal happened with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that the Cleveland Browns and the Patriots both had come to terms with the Niners on a potential deal for Brandon Aiyuk, which leaves the ball in Aiyuk's court because none of these teams are making this trade unless they know Brandon Aiyuk is willing to sign a contract extension and be there for 3, 4, 5 seasons. And that's really what it came down to until just about a couple of hours ago, that it was really a bidding war between the Patriots and the Browns, and Aiyuk was going to pick the best one or stay in San Francisco and try to work out a contract there. But it doesn't sound like Aiyuk has made any progress with the Niners. He demanded a trade last week, so that's why we're in this situation. However, we just found out a couple of hours ago that even though the Pittsburgh Steelers had dropped out of conversations with the Niners as of last night, they've picked up those conversations again and been involved in talks with Brandon Aiyuk. And from everything that I've heard, that's where Brandon Aiyuk wants to go. He doesn't want to go to New England. He doesn't want to go to Cleveland. He wants to go to Pittsburgh. And, you know, you don't really blame the guy. Patriots are in a full-on rebuild. Cleveland's in an okay situation right now, but they've always been a shaky organization, whereas the Steelers are arguably one of the best run organizations in the NFL, and even when they have bad teams, they're still competing for a playoff spot year in and year out, and there's a lot of hope there right now with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, and they always are good at drafting receivers and rebuilding quickly. The Steelers seem to always be a contender in the AFC North, even if you don't expect them to be that way, but Steelers have a long ways to go if they're going to be in a similar situation to the Patriots and the Browns, who have agreed to terms with the Niners and put the ball in Brandon Aiyuk's court. But Patriots really are in the highest leverage position right now to get Aiyuk, with all that being said. Now, Aiyuk has to sign on the dotted line. He has to want to be there. But the Pats have the most cap space to work with. And pulling up the NFL cap space tracker right now, Patriots as of right now have the second most cap space to work with heading into the 2024 NFL season, behind the San Francisco 49ers, believe it or not. The Browns find themselves at about, 5, 6, 7. They're about 8th or 9th in the NFL in terms of cap space, and the Steelers are sort of near the bottom, near 20, but we're talking about contract extensions here, so you really have to look ahead down the road. And the Patriots, when you look at the cap space heading into 2025, they're also second in the NFL, just behind the Arizona Cardinals, whereas the Cleveland Browns are in a terrible situation. They're second to last. They have a cap, they're going to be about negative negative 60 million in terms of cap space. So they're going to have to do some moving around after this season if they do extend Brandon Aiyuk and in fact bring him in. The Browns are paying a lot of people. They're paying Deshaun Watson. They have a lot of high-end defensive pieces that they're paying. They're paying Amari Cooper, who would presumably be part of this deal. We do know if the Patriots are to make this deal with the 49ers, there's a high likelihood that they will throw Kendrick Bourne into that mix, who played in San Francisco before and had a good experience with the Niners, and the Niners still very much like Kendrick Bourne. Also, his health is a bit shaky right now, and the Patriots have a very crowded receiving room, so if you're going to bring someone in, you probably want to ship somebody out. Maybe throw in Juju Smith-Schuster if the Niners are willing, but they're probably not willing to do that. But also looking ahead to 2025, the Pittsburgh Steelers are very close to the New England Patriots in terms of future cap space. They're at number 3. Patriots are number 2. They basically have the same cap figure there. So the Steelers actually, if they can come to terms with the 49ers like the Patriots and the Browns have, they probably have the best shot at landing Brandon Aiyuk, especially once you consider that Aiyuk wants to play there and doesn't seem to be as high on New England or Cleveland. But who knows? I mean, the Steelers, they dropped out of talks yesterday and re-engaged today, so that's a bit of a shaky situation relative to the Patriots and the Browns. This does feel similar to the Calvin Ridley situation, though. It seems like Ridley used the Patriots and used the Jaguars to find another team that was willing to pay even more, and sounds like Brandon Aiyuk is upping the ante a little bit with the Patriots, who, at least according to Mike Reese of ESPN, seem to be the most aggressive team at pursuing Brandon Aiyuk. So he's trying to bring that number up as high as possible so that potentially a team like the Steelers will bite and be willing to sign him to a contract extension if the return is suitable for the 49ers. So that's what I think is going on right now. But the truth is, Brandon Aiyuk playing for a contender or playing for a good team does not seem to be a priority because he plays for the San Francisco 49ers, arguably the second best team in the NFL and the best team in the NFC, at least at the moment. Like, if he wants to go to a Super Bowl, he should just stay where he's at. He's been to the Super Bowl already. Probably not going to happen in New England. Probably not going to happen in Cleveland and Pittsburgh either this season. But the money seems to be what's most important. And the Patriots seem to be willing, at least from what I've read, they're willing to pay about $30 million a year over the course of 5 seasons. So we're talking about a $150 million contract, and roughly about 50% of that, $75 million, will be guaranteed. Now, how do the Patriots continue to be aggressive and give Aiyuk an offer that he can't refuse? Well, you could up the number, so make it 32, 33, 34 million, make him one of the highest paid receivers in the NFL, if not the highest paid receiver. I wouldn't go that route. I would just up the guaranteed money. So if right now what Brandon Aiyuk is looking at is $150 million over 5 years with $75 million guaranteed, well, the Patriots could say, all right, we'll bump it to 90, and maybe that will be enough to push Aiyuk over the edge and be willing to play in cold weather Foxborough, where he doesn't seem to want to be at the moment. But you got to sell him on more than that, right? You have to sell him on the rebuild. You have to sell him on Alex Van Pelt's West Coast offense, point out the similarities to what Kyle Shanahan is running in San Francisco, which they are very similar. I think Alex Van Pelt's a little more old school West Coast than Shanahan is, but you make that the selling point, along with Drake Maye, and you say, look, we drafted this guy. He's excellent, working out the kinks right now, may not see the field this year, or at least later in the season, but we know there's a lot of potential there for him to be a Justin Herbert, Josh Allen style quarterback. He could be a lot better than Brock Purdy or Jimmy Garoppolo, who's been throwing you the football over these last few years. And in the meantime, we have Jacoby Brissett, who's more than competent and a guy who can probably play potentially at a Brock Purdy level. And you're going to be the number one guy, right? So even if we're not giving you all of this in guaranteed money, we're giving you 50%, well, you're probably going to hit those incentives in New England when you look at our receiving core right now. And at least according to Brandon Aiyuk and according to the national media, the Patriots have nobody at receiver. Now, I respectfully disagree. I think Demario Douglas is a potential Pro Bowler. I think Jalen Polk is going to be an immediate hit. And I think Javon Baker has the potential to be a true number one down the road. And you're going to make life a hell of a lot easier for all three of those guys if you bring in a guy like Brandon Aiyuk, who's going to be facing all the double teams, and even Aiyuk, who defenses have had to prepare for in San Francisco, even factoring in guys like Deebo Samuel and George Kittle. You know, he still finds ways to get open. He's going to get open in New England and potentially put up another 1,300-yard plus season, which the Patriots really haven't seen since Randy Moss. So we'll see what the Patriots can do. They have to sell him on the money. They have to sell him on the future of the Patriots, saying this is going to be a quick rebuild with Drake Maye. We've seen a lot out of him. And we have a 2-year plan where we're going to beef up that offensive line. And we already have one of the best defenses in the NFL. You can be an impact player here right away and bring us from being a bad team to a good team, and then 2 to 3 seasons down the road, suddenly we're contending for a Super Bowl again. That should be the pitch to Brandon Aiyuk, along with, Boston is the best sports city in America. And yes, I know I'm biased, but it's hard to argue against that these days. These are the best fans, the most passionate fans you're going to play under. Even San Francisco, which has a strong fan base, we think we top that. The culture here is great. Gerard Mayo, coming from the roots of Bill Belichick, but he's going to be more of an open coach, and you're going to make a lot of money here. We're going to throw in a little bit extra to compensate for the millionaire's tax or the Massachusetts state income tax, so you don't even have to think about playing in Ohio or playing in Pennsylvania where you're not going to get taxed as much because we're throwing so much money in there, so much guaranteed money, and we can afford it. Unlike some of these other teams, we can afford it because the Browns are going to be in cap jail if they sign you to a contract extension. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, yeah, they may look a little bit better down the road, but they're going to have to make some maneuvers if they want to bring you in and sign you to a contract extension. Whereas here in New England, we have a ton of cap space to work with, and we've re-signed all of our foundational pieces. We think we had a very good draft, and we're going to sell you on that. And hopefully that will be enough to make Brandon Aiyuk sign on the dotted line and give the Patriots that number one boundary X wide receiver that they've been missing for a very long time now. We hope it happens. We'll be here at Pat's Cast to cover it if any news breaks between now and after this podcast goes out. But like I said, Patriots wrapped up their last day of padded practices at training camp before their preseason opener on Thursday against Carolina. Was a solid day for Drake Maye for the most part. Really had a productive day. Led a full field drive in 11-on-11s. Hit Kayshon Boutte on a pinpoint touchdown pass. And really did a strong job right up until they got into 2-minute drills at the end of practice. And then it was a repeat of what happened on Monday. Drake Maye couldn't complete a pass. He really struggles with tempo. And it's not even so much running 2-minute or 1-minute offense, going no huddle, doing all of that. It's pre-snap. It's getting in and out of the huddle quickly. It's making the correct reads at the line within a few seconds before you have to snap the ball. And that's not surprising, right? I mean, that is the biggest learning curve for most young NFL quarterbacks. And you would expect Maye to continue to improve there, but that has been his Achilles heel thus far at training camp. But looking beyond that, he has improved. His footwork looks so much better than it did when he first got to the Patriots. His mechanics look a lot better. And when he's in 11-on-11s, when he has to lead the team down on full field drives, he does a pretty damn good job. And I think perhaps what's most impressive for Drake Maye, and I talked about this on yesterday's podcast, is he's great in the red zone. He's great at quickly making first, second, third, and fourth reads and getting rid of the football quickly and throwing players open when you only have 5-10 yards to work with. That's where perhaps Drake Maye's greatest strength is. That's where his greatest strength was in North Carolina. And I'm not even factoring in his athleticism, his mobility, his ability to extend plays. That's all going to show up a lot more when we get into real game situations. Whereas when you're kind of simulating it on the practice field, you don't want quarterbacks rolling out and improvising all that much. And Drake Maye, we're going to see that a lot more, hopefully on Thursday in the preseason game. We found out Jacoby Brissett will be starting. Drake Maye is going to get time. Joe Milton's going to get time. I would expect Bailey Zappi to get a little bit of time as well. It would be interesting to see if Joe Milton is the third quarterback or the fourth quarterback. But we'll see what happens there on Thursday. Jacoby Brissett had an okay practice, getting a lot more reps than Drake Maye. In fact, Jacoby Brissett had a bunch of reps today with the second team. Just kind of, I think Gerard Mayo, Alex Van Pelt wanted to put Brissett in the same situation that Drake Maye has been in through all of camp. That way you can get a more accurate comparison. And he did struggle a little bit there, but ultimately had 12 more reps in team drills compared to Drake Maye. Had a bunch of connections with Ramondre Stevenson, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Jalen Reagor. And as we saw yesterday, he did the 2-minute drill at the end of practice and looked pretty strong. Ended with a hurry-up drive and hit 3 different receivers during that 2-minute drill. So I think it's safe to chalk it up that Jacoby Brissett will be the starter at this point, but we'll see what Drake Maye can do during the preseason. And if it's close, maybe you sit Jacoby Brissett the last game of the preseason, you start Drake Maye out there, see how he performs, and then make a final decision based on that outcome. But as of right now, I don't see that happening. I think it's going to be Jacoby Brissett. Bailey Zappi added pretty decent practice, took 8 straight snaps and 11 on 11s, matched Drake Maye's longest drive of the day, but he did take 3 sacks. That's more of an offensive line situation than the quarterback. Joe Milton didn't get a ton of snaps in team periods, but like I said, we're likely to see some extensive action in the preseason opener. Some notes coming out of today. Matthew Judon did not participate after initially being involved in stretching in warm-ups. Was seen in his normal sweatshirt attire and all. That was a rainy day in Foxborough today. Not another episode, not another outburst. Not sure what's going on there. There is speculation because he's been thrown out there and the potential trade talks with the Niners for Brandon Aiyuk. You trade Kendrick Bourne, Matt Judon, and maybe a second-round pick for Brandon Aiyuk. So maybe there was speculation that because Judon didn't participate today that a deal had been done, but as of right now, we haven't heard anything about that. So not really sure why he wasn't out there, but didn't have a blow-up like last week. So, hey, that's progress, right? And no news on the contract situation with him and the Patriots at the moment. Some concern with Caden Wallace, our potential future left tackle or right tackle, who the Patriots drafted in the early rounds this year. Looked like he had a bad injury, but he did return, so that was good to see. Chuks Okorafor on the offensive line missed a 3rd straight practice. Marcus Jones on the defensive side missed his 4th. And then Tyquan Thornton's been having some injury issues, which we're pretty used to at this point. Even though he's really been the most consistent wide receiver throughout training camp, he just can't seem to stay healthy. He watched team drills today alongside defensive players Josh Uche and Jonathan Jones. And then Kendrick Bourne appeared more than halfway through practice in workout clothes and also watched team drills from the sideline. He hasn't been a full participant yet, or even anywhere near close to a participant at training camp thus far. There was also speculation because Bourne wasn't out there that maybe a trade had occurred and Judon wasn't out there, but then they both kind of appeared and were just kind of watching practice. So not sure what's going on there, but Elliott Wolf is being aggressive and all options seem to be on the table at this point. The starting offensive line at practice today, back at left tackle, was Vidarian Lowe. I'm just assuming right now that he's a fill-in until Chuks Okorafor is back on the field and healthy again. I don't think any Patriots fans want to see Vidarian Lowe part of that starting lineup, but I guess, at least according to Greg Bedard, he's had a pretty good camp. So, players are terrible, and then sometimes they can improve in the offseason and make a leap. Maybe that's what's happening with Vidarian Lowe. I just wouldn't be very confident about that. Same guys at left, right guard, and center with Sidy Sow on the left, David Andrews at center, and Michael Wenu at right guard. Safe to say he's not going to be the right tackle, at least in the immediate future. And then Calvin Anderson was back at right tackle, and then Caden Wallace didn't start, but he played both on the far left and far right sides of the offensive line. If I had to guess at this point, safe to say Sidy Sow, David Andrews, and Michael Wenu will be in the center of that offensive line. And then I think it's going to be Caden Wallace and Chuks Okorafor. It's just a matter of who's going to be on the left side, who's going to be on the right side. They've tried everything out. They keep rotating players around. The wish is Caden Wallace is ready to play left tackle right away, but even if he's not, maybe he is ready to play right tackle where he took all of his reps at Penn State. Nick Leverett got some backup snaps at center. Antonio Maffey also got some snaps at center and continued to struggle with Drake Maye during the hurry-up series. I really don't want to see Antonio Maffey at center. Put him at guard. He's fine there. It doesn't really work out. Some defensive highlights. Marcellus Dial, the cornerback that they drafted, I think in the 6th round, was it? He had an interception. Pass breakups from Kyle Duggar, Jabril Peppers, Azizi Hearn, Del Pettis, and Joe Giles Harris, and a bunch of would-be sacks, of course, with that offensive line with their struggles. Anthony Jennings had 2. Kyle Duggar, Tristan Hill, Jabril Peppers, Sam Roberts, and Brendan Schooler all had 1 would-be sack. So, look, Jacoby Brissett seems to be the starter. Offense slowly making progress. Just a matter of that offensive line. Very impressed with the wide receivers so far in training camp. Really going to be interesting who gets that 6th or 7th final spot in the receiving room, whether it's Tyquan Thornton or Juju Smith-Schuster or Jalen Reagor, who I think will make the team just for special teams reasons, or Kayshon Boutte, who's also having a very good camp. And we know he's very talented and kind of a development piece, but he could make the team. And also one of those guys probably be on the practice squad. I wouldn't expect Juju Smith-Schuster to make the roster. In all honesty, I think he will be cut, and the Patriots will just have to eat the $12 million. They have plenty of cap space to work with and can afford to do that, even if they do bring in a guy like Brandon Aiyuk at $30+ million a year. I don't see much room for Juju. Maybe you can trade him away, but is there any use for him in San Francisco? Probably not. But like I said, last padded practice of the week before Thursday's preseason opener. Patriots will have a walkthrough on Wednesday without media access, so they will be on the field, but we're not going to get lots of updates there. This was their 3rd straight practice in pads, the first time in training camp they've done that. And going to be interesting to see what happens on Thursday. I think Drake Maye has an excellent opportunity because he's been going up against this Patriots defense in practice with second-team players. Probably going to be with second-team players in that preseason game, but going to be going up against an inferior Carolina Panthers defense. Has a real opportunity to shine and bring himself back into that QB competition. But at least according to Greg Bedard, there is no QB competition at the moment. It looks to be Jacoby Brissett's job. But we'll be here at PatsCast the rest of the week and with some instant reaction on Thursday to the preseason opener. You're not going to want to miss out. If you like this video, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. Or subscribe if you're listening on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. We'll be back with you the rest of the week.
Cast in the air, voices loud. Drake Maye shouts to the crowd, feel the sound. Old woes no more with Aiyuk near. Catching dreams for the team, no fear. Jacoby passes, electrify the night. Hope in every pass, here we fight. Past fading shadows, Aiyuk bright. Glory days coming back on the lights. Jacoby passes, electrify the night. Hope in every pass, here we fight. Past fading shadows, Aiyuk bright. Glory days coming back on the lights. PatsCast, tune in, listen close. Aiyuk Savior, yeah, he knows. Gonna rise, same as the sun. Touchdown moment, here we come. Here we come. Mayo plans, we execute, no doubt. Greenfield battleground, hear the shouts. Aiyuk, the lightning flash.